In our studies in Exodus, we come today to Exodus chapter 13 verse 17 to chapter 14 verse 31. An experienced man or woman may be able to cross a desert and find the way with some certainty. But the person who is not used to such terrain will find it bewildering and will easily become lost. This was the danger that now stood before the Israelites. And it's a danger that we face as we step out in the way of discipleship. Yet what we need was given to the Israelites, the assured presence of God, as recorded here in chapter 13, verses 21 and 22. For them, the visible symbol of the presence of the invisible God was provided. To us, he has given his word, the completely reliable guide to our faith and our conduct. He's also given us his Spirit so that we can wisely discern the will of the Lord. Thus, like Israel of old, we can go out into the unknown future with certain confidence that we can trust in him. Organised as they were, the people were also untrained and inexperienced. Today, national governments know that the best soldier is the trained one. Faced with severe difficulty, they will prove their worth, while the inexperienced will crumble under lesser stresses. The God of Israel understands our natures better than anyone else. Hence, though less than a week would have brought the people to the borders of Canaan, he found it necessary to lead them out into the desert for 40 years before they were ready for the warfare of the conquest. And there's a comforting lesson here. The Apostle Paul recognized this when he said, "He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear, but when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it." I'm referring to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. Sometimes Christian preachers seek to challenge their hearers' faith by quoting an example of Christian faithfulness under the severest trial. And this is understandable, but not really fair. What we need is not the guarantee that we will be able to face such situations in the unlikely event that we may be tried in the same way. Rather, we need the confidence that where we are in our daily walk with the Lord, he will be with us and protect us. This assurance the Bible gives us both by example and direct word from the Lord. In verse 19, we're reminded of the confidence of Joseph as expressed in Genesis chapter 50, verses 24 and 25. He'd been assured that God would be faithful to his promises, and thus he'd commanded the Israelites to take his body with them when they left Egypt. God had now begun to reward Joseph's faith. As a result, his bier would be a permanent reminder of the faithfulness of God to his word through all the wanderings in the desert. But if Joseph had to wait 400 years, the Israelites themselves would only have to wait 40. Modern Christians show a remarkable lack of interest in church history and in the faithfulness of God to believers of past generations. The result is that very often the people of God are crippled by a lack of faith and vision, but not so the Israelites. They would have been strengthened by Joseph's faith. The lessons of these early verses are vividly illustrated in the events which immediately followed, the crossing of the Red Sea in chapter 14. Persuaded by the confused course which the Israelites were apparently taking, and that therefore they could easily be subdued and return to their former duties, Pharaoh decided to gather the powerful might of his army together to attack the people of God. Everything appeared about to be against them. Desert on one side, the sea on the other, and Pharaoh approaching from the only possible way of escape. And we can well imagine the terror of the people. They were a group of ill-equipped men and women faced with the greatest military might of the ancient world, and their response was understandable and human. They cried out to the Lord, and they criticized Moses, thus showing their lack of confidence in both Moses and their God. Even though the Lord had told Moses, and he presumably had told them himself, exactly what was happening, they reacted with fear. Perhaps like us, the new experience left them with the uncomfortable feeling, can our God really cope? Like many a Christian leader, Moses assured the people, even though he too was reaching the limits of his faith, as we see in verses 13 to 15 of chapter 14. And yet, his words provided the key to the whole situation. They offered the only hope they could have. Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance of the Lord, which he will bring you today. The sequel's well known. At a command from Moses, the sea divided and the people went over on dry ground. Meanwhile, they were protected by the Lord from the rear, and then the army of Egypt was destroyed without the Israelites doing anything at all. And the result is as briefly stated as it was inevitable. The Lord saved Israel. The people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses his servant. The fear had been unnecessary and the victory certain. Like Israel, we find this a difficult lesson to learn, yet it is the source of great peace and joy even in the most difficult circumstances. Significantly, we read that Moses said in verse 13 that the Egyptians you see today you will never see again. This probably helps explain why the New Testament seems to reflect on this incident in the language it uses about baptism. It is a symbol of the power of sin broken in death and a life released to be freely given to the Lord, as we read in Romans chapter 6 verses 1 to 4. Do we so live to God as to prove our testimony in baptism is true